When first seen from the Spanish side of the peninsula, the Rock of Gibraltar can appear to be sinister and foreboding, especially when it is partially shrouded in the morning mist. But once at the border, the British colony takes on a lively and inviting countenance. The name Gibraltar comes from an Arab leader, Gibraltar, who invaded Spain in the 8th century. The rock was ceded to Britain by the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, after being captured by an Anglo-Dutch fleet in 1704. For 17 years, starting with an action by General Franco, the Spanish dictator, Spain isolated Gibraltar by erecting huge iron gates at the frontier and didn't allow anybody to cross either way. The only people who suffered were the Spanish workers of La Linea, the Spanish border town, who lost their jobs on the rock. It did, however, result in the Gibraltarians disliking the Spanish even more. Immediately after passing through customs and passport control, which is just a cursory glance and a wave through, the visitor sees a new supermarket which has a tea terrace overlooking the airfield. This airfield, operated by the RAF, also serves as a civil airport, which provides 2 flights a day to London and 1 to Manchester. There are 3 incoming flights every day from the UK. Part of the runway is built over the sea, and this must be one of the few, if not the only airport to have its runway cross the main road. It must be a bit strange for the tourist when for the first time he has to stop at traffic lights to allow an airliner to cross the road. The city of Gibraltar is spread around the base of the rock, and to reach it you must either drive or walk across the airfield. If you wish to drive, you can either use a taxi, a tour car, or a local bus service will take you to the city centre from the airport terminal for a modest fare. This obsolete Vulcan bomber was donated to the city by the RAF, and it's a constant reminder that Gibraltar is a military base. The route to the city centre passes by these council-owned flats, which houses the local workforce. As no land is available for gardens, washing is dried by hanging it from the windows and the balconies. Not the prettiest sight to welcome visitors. The main part of the city is a busy shopping street, where everything is reasonably cheap, especially televisions, cameras, radios, perfume and jewellery. One thing is sure, you won't get ripped off in Gibraltar. Many of the shops have British household names and sell British goods and food. At one end of the main street is the Trafalgar Cemetery. Although it's not on the official tour guide, it is well worth a visit, if only for a quiet rest, and to read the fulsome eulogies on the tombstones. In this cemetery lie servicemen who died as a result of wounds they received at big naval battles, Trafalgar being very well represented. On this and many other tombstones, Trafalgar is remembered as being a great and glorious battle. This tombstone is in memory of 2 sailors killed by the same shot. The men are described as the brightest ornaments of the corps. There are some unusual sketches on this slab, which is in memory of an officer's wife. They could be angels, or they could be vampire bats, and it might be wondered about the meaning of the skull and crossbones. A visit to the 100-ton gun is also worthwhile, as it's interesting history. This gun took 2 hours to get ready for firing, and thereafter it took 35 men to fire one 2,000-pound shell every 4 minutes. The range was 8 miles. As its name implies, the gun, built by Sir William Armstrong in 1879, weighs 100 tons. There were 2 barrels for this gun, and when it was made obsolete, a local scrap merchant bought the spare barrel. However hard he tried, he found it impossible to cut it up for scrap, and so in a fit of despair, he threw it over a cliff, where it remains to this day. The gun emplacement looks down on Rosier Bay. This was the only harbour in Gibraltar when Nelson's ship the Victory was towed in after the Battle of Trafalgar. The Admiral's body was taken into this small building, where it was preserved in a barrel of French brandy. The British Navy, however, prefers to say it was rum, and to this day the Navy calls rum Nelson's blood. Overlooking Catalan Bay, one of Gibraltar's 7 beaches, are the catchments. Part of the slopes above the road have been covered with whitewashed galvanised iron sheets, their purpose to catch rainwater. Years ago, most of the city's water supply started here. Today, though, the water consumption is so high that supplies have to be imported by tanker from Morocco. The construction of these catchments, with primitive tools on very dangerous ground, is a lasting tribute to the expertise of the British Army engineers. From Catalan Bay, the road continues through a long tunnel and reaches Europa Point, the most southern tip of the rock. Here is the only Trinity House lighthouse operating outside the British Isles. It's painted in Trinity House colours, and its light can be seen in Morocco. On this site, with its magnificent views of Spain and Morocco, are the Army married quarters. Most visitors make sure that they see the Gibraltar apes, and a new cable car will take them to the best area to see them. Because these animals arrived with the British, legend has it that should the apes leave, so will the British. During the Second World War, the ape population diminished alarmingly, and feeling that they might become extinct, the British Prime Minister, the then Mr. Winston Churchill, ordered more apes to be imported from Morocco. This saved the ape colony, and who knows, maybe the British presence as well. There are many caves in the rock, and the most popular by far is this one, St Michael's Cave. During the Second World War, it was prepared to be an emergency hospital should Spain come into the war. Fortunately, it was never needed. It is now a concert hall, offering opera and pop concerts. Also in this natural grotto is an exhibition of life-size models depicting life on the rock in 40,000 BC. Skulls and other relics of that period have been found on the rock, and these are displayed in the Gibraltar Museum. Stalagmites and stalactites are in abundance, and the colourful effect they produce is very stunning. As well as caves, there are the galleries, which consist of 30 miles of tunnels inside the rock. During the Spanish siege of Gibraltar in 1782, a tunnel was started in order that the guns could be mounted on the inaccessible north face of the rock. However, when ventilation holes were made at the side of the tunnel, it was found that the apertures looked down on the Spanish positions. This big cavern is known as St George's Hall, and it was here that the Governor of Gibraltar laid on a banquet to entertain General Grant, the American President. The galleries now have full-size models depicting scenes from the Great Siege. The man holding the lamp is Sergeant Major Ince, who was responsible for the idea of tunnelling. A grateful government gave him a commission and a plot of land on top of the rock, which is still known as Ince's Farm. One of the highlights for visitors is the ceremonial changing of the guard. This takes place outside the Governor's residence every Tuesday at 11 o'clock AM. The spectacle is enjoyed by all. Both British and foreign nationals seem to be impressed by the precision drilling of the British Army. This ends our brief look at Gibraltar, so remember you could use it as a holiday base. Apart from the items mentioned in this film, you can ride a cable car to the very top of the rock. There are theatres, cinemas, gardens. You can go fishing, scuba diving, go on a dolphin safari, take a trip to Tangier, or cross the border to the Costa del Sol. Watch football, cricket and hockey. You can take part in clay pigeon shooting, or watch motorcycle scrambling. If you come to Gibraltar, you'll find something you like.